We're going to turn now to the front page of The Sun because we're joined by Julia Atherley, Home Affairs correspondent of The Sun. Very good morning to you, Julia. Thank you very much for joining us. Terrorists admitting to 7/7 blasts and involvement in 9/11 is likely to be released onto the streets of London very, very soon, it would seem. Incredible story. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is a man called Haroon Aswat, who was extradited to the US, faced terror charges over there, was then sent back to the UK. He's been detained under the Mental Health Act in the UK. Doctors are now saying that he is fit to be released. But there's clearly huge concerns about him being released back onto Britain's streets. Yeah. The police have applied for a notification order, which is kind of a last kind of chance they have to have some sort of control over his release. While in US custody, he said that he was a mastermind of the 7/7 bombings and of 9/11. And this is someone who, you know, we're reporting today that he could be released imminently onto our streets.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? So he, first of all, was detained, I think, in 2017, was it? That he was basically taken over to America. He told staff that he was associated with al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden was his commander, and that he would behead everybody, basically. In a witness statement, the Chief Superintendent Gareth Rees, head of the operations for the Met's SO-15 counter-terrorism command, said he has spoken positively of his time with al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and expressed aspirations to reconnect with them. I mean, he sounds like a very dangerous individual, and he's been in a psychiatric ward basically for several years, right?
And yeah, exactly. And this isn't a man who's just, you know, had this idea in his head. This is a man who, in 2001, travelled to Afghanistan and trained with al-Qaeda. Right. So he is an actual, serious threat, and that's exactly what the police were putting before court yesterday. Right. So this has emerged. We've found this out because we applied for legal documents which were put before the High Court. The Met applied for what's called a notification order. So all that requires Aswat to do is to inform the police if he's going to change his address or if he's going to leave the country. And he'll still be allowed to leave the country if he wants to. He'll just have to tell them about it. Right. And that's kind of all that's
amazing, isn't it? That he has that kind of freedom. You know, in 2005, police traced 20 calls to a phone linked to this man Aswat, made by the 7/7 bombers before their attack. He also stayed in a house in Pakistan where he shared rooms with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the man who masterminded 9/11. So he's not, you know, as you say, he's not a sort of fantasist. He's somebody who's right at the heart of some of the worst Islamic fundamentalist atrocities in terms of terrorism in this century.
Exactly. I mean, it's incredibly hard to believe that he could now be released. Right. So he's been detained under the Mental Health Act. He's been housed in Broadmoor, and now he's held in a mental health hospital in South London. But doctors have now said that he is fit to be released, and he is in a state that can be released.
That is the worrying thing, isn't it? The doctors in these cases can say that, and it's a bit like some people who get sort of offered up for parole, and you go, oh, well, the parole board says that he's probably okay now. He's murdered a few people, but, you know, now he's not going to do it again. And there's something wrong with the system, isn't there?
So the issue with this case, I think, that we've really highlighted in the paper today is that the assessment that should be going on when a terrorist is released from custody can't happen because of how he's detained. Right. So there has been no risk assessment as to his threat under, you know, terrorism laws. Yeah. And that's what we've been highlighting today. So that's why the Met have been forced to go to the High Court to request this notification order.
Right. And you've got quotes from many of them. Another one here from Detective Sergeant David Taylor. I assess the defendant has a significant involvement with Islamic extremism, involvement in terrorism, and a long-standing association with others holding radical beliefs. He was a friend of Abu Hamza's as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And we've got a picture of them together in the paper today. And so, I mean, for example, we've got Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick in the paper saying that this man should never experience freedom, which I think is something that will be shared by our readers and our listeners.
Absolutely. And I guess the rules of engagement are that if you are somebody who's detained under the Mental Health Act, then you can't be kept in prison, as it were, because you're no longer a prisoner. You're now somebody who is a patient. And then once you become a patient, you can be released as a patient, I guess.
Exactly. And I mean, you know, as you said, we in court, there were people putting forward witness statements saying that he still holds extreme violent terrorist views, and that's someone who's going to be released onto our streets.
Yeah, and then where would he go? I mean, that would be the other question, I suppose, because somebody like Haroon Aswat, I mean, if he's been detained for many years, right? So he's probably been institutionalised to some extent. Does he go to a halfway house? Where does he go?
So he has to inform the police where he's going to be staying,
right.
But I don't think at this point there's any. We don't have to say where he is. We don't, the public won't be informed where he is.
Right. Goodness me, it really is quite a shocking story. But I guess you'll be following it up and keeping an eye on it from
absolutely
everybody's point of view. Great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Julia Atherley there, Home Affairs correspondent at The Sun. What on earth is going on in this country? How can this guy get out? It really is quite extraordinary. Despite his confession while in US custody, he could be out on the streets within days, according to the piece in The Sun. Extraordinary stuff.